Hello, good morning, good afternoon, in this Sunday morning or lunch, whatever it is. So this is part 2 of what we started 2 weeks ago, together with my good friend and colleague, psychotherapist, Amata.
Hello.
My name is Mihai. And before we continue on this Socratic exploratory dialogue on the topic of the anatomy of the romantic illusion. So this is part 2. I would like to acknowledge the context. So right now, the humanity is dealing with this pandemic. All the people suffering, people grieving, people fearing, people being upset. This is happening. Humanity is dealing with violence, unfairness, injustice. It's been happening for millennia. Happened a few days ago. Police brutality. It's happening now, somewhere, right now, somewhere. It's happening after this podcast. So right now there are birds singing, the sun shining, the earth moving around the sun at high speeds. Actually, the whole solar system moving around the sun at high speeds, and our sun moving around Sirius, high speeds. And as the great wise man Robert Adams said, all is well and unfolding as it should. So yeah, I would like to have a brief synopsis of what we talked last time. Once again, myself and Amata, we work as psychotherapists, and we are familiar somehow and have experience with what is called attachment styles, attachment wounds, trauma. Such things, they have a major influence on our relationship, our intimacies. They are subconscious patterns of playing out in all relationships. Our unresolved childhood material comes out in all relationships, in particular in intimacy, love, partnership, monogamous, polyamorous, whatever. So we speak from this perspective of, psychotherapy, healing. At the same time, we speak also from the point of view of being, both of us and many of you listening here, being truth lovers, seekers of truth, interested in awakening, presence, unprogramming, enlightenment, healing the world, So we have this hat too, maybe even broader than the psychotherapist hat. Also, what gives us authority is that we, Amata and myself, we dealt with a lot of suffering, in relationships. And hey, Amata, maybe you unmute yourself also, just to hear you chuckle here.
I just muted because there was a police or something in the background and I didn't want to disrupt.
Yeah.
But it was suffering.
Yeah, and we had to deal with this and feelings of loneliness, feeling of lack, feeling of abandonment, feeling of rejection, of despair, alone in the whole world. unloved, trying to seek the one, you know. So we are speaking from all this perspective, and we don't hold the truth of God, obviously. It's a Socratic dialogue. Don't believe us, just be open and see what resonates as true for you. Yeah. So as I said, there's part one of this exploratory dialogue, and one of the main ideas that we explored, and I want to say that we didn't plan this. I'm not planning, we don't have a script, so we are just spontaneous, flying through the galaxy. So we touched upon this idea that there are some myths, some illusions that somehow drive us from the back of our subconscious. This idea of, if only I find the one, I meet this person, this other being, and then I'm going to arrive at happiness. My sense of lack and dissatisfaction that I might not even be aware of drives this seeking, and then I'm finding this relationship, and it's going to be good. It's going to be wonderful. Also, we talked about this myth of that subconsciously we hold this vision that when this happens, then it's going to be amazing all the time.
Forever.
Forever. Like juicy and fireworks and like, and we talked about that this doesn't last. It doesn't work like that. We talked about the myth of the one, and also we talked from the point of view of this spiritual teachings like fourth way, non-duality, Advaita Vedanta, this premise that what we really are, which is our true identity, which is the presence of awareness right now, the presence of awareness that is aware of images, aware of sensations, of thoughts coming and going, aware of the body. So this presence of awareness that we are, the theory, don't believe me, but the theory is that it is already whole and complete, lacking nothing. And it's absolute peace, plenitude, free of desires. It's already full and whole. So I know this sounds lofty, and but I'm holding this perspective in mind and aiming to embody that fully and have strong intuitive sense and some verification that that is absolutely true. So in connection to our discussion, basically, when we are not in touch with this dimension of our conscious presence, we are feeling something is missing. So the sense of identity is in this missing sense of me, this ego. And then what this ego wants to do is trying to reach happiness. So what we do is that we are now going to seek this missing happiness and contentment in the outer world through a wonderful career, through success, recognition, through objects, through cars, having a special tower with my name on it, through relationships, through love, through substances, you know. So we are kind of hoping to go out there and finally get all that, and finally we arrive. So from this perspective, this is never going to happen. And we often, most of us, we experience that we have gotten that relationship, that car, that job, and we are back in square one. Still, something is missing. And also we talked last time that as long as this program of the one and the program that the other one will fulfill me, as this is running, actually this is a number one obstacle for actually experiencing a yummy, fulfilling relationship. We also talked last time that another obstacle for experiencing a deeper love from consciousness, from presence, another obstacle to that is our unprocessed childhood wounds, which can't be bypassed, with some slapping, some Zen non-duality on top of it. I tried it, it doesn't work.
I witness you tried very hard.
So anyway, this is my little introduction, and I just want to, if you have any thoughts or anything you want to say, Amata, yeah.
Yeah. Hello, everyone, first of all. And it's such a rich conversation as you are naming all the things that we touched upon last time. My mind goes like, woo, woo, woo. And all the little things jump out of the hat. I was thinking one thing that was coming out really strongly for me as I was hearing you talking about this Advaita non-dual perspective that we've definitely are holding as a background, is the fact that I, myself, like I do definitely resonate in the ultimate picture with that non-dual understanding of consciousness. But then I also like to include in my own walk of life a very opposite understanding, especially when it comes to love and relating, and even in relationship to spirit, or the relationship with God, right? I also have I feel, and we've probably talked about it a few times in the years, that there is an element that I cannot separate from this conversation around devotion and devotional love and devotional relationship. I think that it's that that whole context of the relation with the beloved, right? And the devotion for the beloved, as opposite to a sort of a romantic idea of the elected one that is going to complete us. So I think that there's a spectrum between these 2 points, like the illusion that we are trying to dissect and explore, the illusion of there is another one besides me, given that I am incomplete without that one that is going to make me complete and happy. And we've seen in so many shape and forms in our experience and in the experience of others that we work with, how that there's a fallacy in that vision. But I am thinking about, okay, and what about that one which happens to be in alignment with us in a relationship that you name is juicy and yummy, and so that devotional element that has a sort of a searching for a mystical union that create completeness, between these 2 elements, masculine, feminine, man, woman, 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 man, man. But I'm not talking about gender. I'm talking about really like what is that is missing, right, for that devotion to be experienced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How come we cannot always experience that sense of devotion in our own self? Why do we always long for another one to experience that devotion. That's what I'm trying to say. Given that I didn't do my work and I'm just improvising along with you in this. So that is something that I wanted to name. And yes, I heard you naming, you know, all kinds of relationship models, monogamy, polyamory, and I'm sure that we will dive into a little bit more into that. And a few other things that I actually forgot as I am speaking. So I'm just gonna give you back the word.
Yeah. Thank you. You know, my plan was to, rather than my plan was to actually answer some of these questions, or various people wrote to us on Facebook or on the actual YouTube link with some interesting questions or comments. So my plan is to go into those and use them as a platform for discussion. But since you brought this devotion, you know, I want to touch upon this. I think the issue here is, and I remember that in the past I studied this, there was some Egyptian ancient text saying that the only problem is the problem of consciousness. Or the way I look at it, what changes the movie, what changes everything is that the question of identity. Who do we think we are? Who I am? Who am I? Am I this Mihai? Am I Mihai, which is based on some memories and some chronology attached to the body? So do I feel myself? I look in the mirror, I see myself, see the body and think this is me. So if I believe I'm the body, and this is actually this is from my experience, the deepest program conditioning that is hard to unprogram. If I feel myself as being the body and being a guy, then I will see everybody as being the body and being a woman, you know? So, so I'm dealing with other people's bodies and other people's personality from my body and my personality. And then this is, but my deeper understanding is that if we start to feel that, since I'm the presence, then gradually I'm the presence of awareness, not as a result of a practice or some mystical state, but just as they call it, the dog shit awareness, you know, this right now. If I gradually sense myself as being the presence of awareness, then gradually you see everybody else being the presence of awareness. So now we have two types of devotion. There is this devotion, like, oh, you know, baby, I love you, I miss you, can you be mine? I'll be yours, you are mine, carving and tattooing. And so this devotion to another person, devotion to another body, and this is coming from the old program, securing this refuge, you know, the premise of stability, having some imagined stability in the future and refuge. But I believe the true devotion is that if I love you or if I appreciate you, I appreciate the presence in you, you know? We love the presence in the other, and the presence in the other is the same as presence here. So devoted to the presence in the other. And actually in these non-dual teachings, there's only one presence. There's one presence that is perceiving through Amata, through Mihai, through everybody. Also in this, you mentioned this lover and beloved. This comes from the Sufi tradition, and this was totally esoteric. It's like the lover was the seeker, which is some aspect of the ego, seeking union with the beloved being God or source of presence, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, if you hear my thing, oh, if somebody comes to you and says, oh, I love you so much, you are mine, and all this that you can find on postcards and be mine and forever, just run, get the hell out of there. It's not gonna work.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, okay?
All right, yeah.
Because one has to, and I'm gonna take that very dirty job of being devil's advocate. Because I want to look at this idea of mindness, right? We've been talking about this idea of belonging and mindness, right?
Yeah.
And I remember there's among the people that were asking questions, there were a few questions that were asked around this idea of possession and possessing another person, or feeling the need to possess and control another person in regards to their own freedom of relating also with other people, and exclusivity. What was that? One was about variety and
yeah, somebody asked us about, it seems like there are these two impulses in people, tendencies, one for stability
and variety. Yes. And that all this discourse around the jealousy that comes in the variety approach, and so you're mine, oh baby, be mine, and run, right? Mm-hmm. What I want to say, as playing the devil's advocate for a moment, is that I think inherently in our experience as human beings, there is a need for belonging, and not in terms of
ownership, not ownership.
Ownership, yes, but as a sort of a kinship more than anything, right? Mm-hmm. It's like we experience that toward the tribe, toward the family, toward the culture, toward society, mm-hmm. the need to belong to something greater than myself, even belong to God at times, right? In our own spiritual, in all different kinds of spiritual ways, and in a relationship with a intimate partner, romantic partner, companion, life partner, this seems to be really predominant. This need of almost like fusion and merging and becoming one. Not only the one, right? Like, but becoming one. Yeah. And I saw that you had something started to
some
to move, squirming inside of you. This alchemical fusion, two elements becoming one, and now we are. Now you're mine, because we became one in some way, and it's a really tempting orientation at times, right? There's something really gratifying for some reason in that. Culturally speaking, it's definitely more accepted than its opposite, right? Culturally speaking, a traditional mainstream type of relationship, it's based on this concept of you're mine, I'm yours, no one else is involved in it, and anything else is a threat, right? That and may affect the quality or the stability, or as you're saying.
Hey, I want to say something about this. It's a good point, and I because I agree, surprisingly.
You agree with the devil, huh?
A little bit, yeah. I just want to give a context. And I remember once this wise man, I hope to invite to this talk. His name is Isaac Shapiro. He was saying this thing that resonated with me, that duality has its place, seeming place, real place, duality arises in non-duality. So at some deep level of identity, hang on, some deep level of our true identity, nothing is lacking, is absolute plenitude, nothing is missing. And within that, there is actually the body, and then the man, the woman, and how it was all set up. You need to have a mate. There's the mate. That's how nature, that's how God created the movie. And so within this context of needing nothing and being what we are is imperturbable, unscratchable, immortal, endless, which obviously this is BS unless we start to verify it. At this context, there's also at the level within that, there's the nervous system that needs safety, you know, needs safety, needs boundaries. Although consciousness is borderless, within that nervous system, it's important to have healthy boundaries and to have emotional safety. And then within that realm, it's healthy. Yeah, what it seems to be the way to go is that to go towards a healthy sense of bondedness. Bondedness that comes from deep independence and deep inner freedom, yet the couple, you know, it's a sense of belonging, sense of stability, a sense of partnership, bonded, but it's not merged, you know. These are words at some point. So I think that's the aim. And actually this healthy bondedness can only happen from a sense of the two individuals feeling inner freedom, completeness, and self-sufficient.
Yeah. So there's a sort of what comes to my mind. It's like there's a need for an equilibrium between autonomy, emotional autonomy, and togetherness.
Yeah.
Maybe like a pendulum, you know, like moving between stages, moments of deep connectedness, and which maybe are even moments or experiences of spiritual merging, or like, you know, like fusion to a certain level of presence, right? Like where two people are so present to one another that it feels like that sense of oneness.
Yeah.
And at the same time, that recognition of each and every one person sovereignty in that experience, like autonomy.
You know, sorry, it's just, I've recently seen some good modeling of this. You know, I've seen it, I witnessed it firsthand. So I've seen or heard of it, and actually I recommend people to watch similar dialogue on the nature of enlightened relationships, or from Amata and her partner Kavi. I highly recommend. I can post it here again. There's a part 1, part 2. So they seem to be, so people like that, Amata, Kavi, my teacher Francis Lucille and his wife Laura Lucille, also that I'm more familiar with, as well as Eckhart Tolle and Kim. So I heard them speak about it. I witnessed people like that. So that seems like what's happening is that they already, to some degree, they embody this sense of, they have already found the source of stability, the source of completeness from deep within. So there's this sense of lack is eradicated or greatly diminished. And then from this place of not needing somebody, from this place, they met somebody who was another expression of the one. Expression is like this, the woman or the man is actually is a God in man or woman form. And then there's some resonance, compatibility, some whatever. And then there is the relationship comes as a form of celebration or deepening the path. I have seen it happening. What I have seen it and heard is that actually that's part of this is in spaciousness. You know, like consciousness is spacious, it's absolute spaciousness. But in this relationship, I could see that there's no clinginess. There is no, hey, you didn't call me. Hey, you didn't call me for 2 days. Somehow, I even heard Eckhart Tolle and Kim talking about that. Man, we can't live together. I mean, we have this apartments, the same building, but we have separate lodging places because we both need considerable amount of individual time. I talked once to Laura told me saying that, you know, we are together for so long, it's so sweet and wonderful, and then I go somewhere for 5 days, it doesn't cross my mind to, oh, I should call Francis. You know, somehow there's total stability, independence, yet sweetness, without needing to, yeah, I don't know, I think I made my point.
Yeah, well, you're also talking about couples that are very solidly established for like more than a decade for sure, right? Like at least Francis and Laura, and also they are in a more mature stage of their life. So I want to put things into context, and I also want to mention a couple of things, reflect on this concept of freedom, right? What is this inner freedom? You said spaciousness, and I think that sometimes there's confusion around this idea of freedom. And I think that one of the people that were commenting on the previous video were bringing up this point about like, is freedom like the freedom to go with other people when you are, is the freedom to seek variety versus stability, right? And if stability equates monogamy, what kind of stability are we talking about? So there's different meanings to certain words as people interpret them. And I'm understanding that the freedom you're talking about, it's a freedom of being, right? It's a freedom of being in your own sense of self without clinging on, you know, like concept of like how many times we talk during the day, or like things that we do together.
It's freedom of a sense of lack, freedom from a sense of needing love from someone else, freedom from a sense of if somebody wants me, then I am okay, freedom from a sense of validation, freedom from needing to be loved because we experience the plenitude of being loved. You know, the theory, and I truly, is that what we are is freedom itself. You know, consciousness is freedom. And let's come to this. Let's go to some of these questions. And I myself have a lot of respect for in various stages of my life. So I first was married, but totally naive about what that meant, with huge amount of, had no idea about my subconscious patterning, about avoidance, attachment pattern within me, about all kind of fears and terrors that I wasn't even aware of. So I experienced quite a number of years of a regular monogamous partnership, which I felt I was doing just because that was available. That was the program, basically. And then after some bunch of years of that, it was just, I failed miserably in a sense of having a good relationship, but it was a great training. It was a great, every woman was a teacher. And at some point, let's say in my early 30s, I was like, fuck that. I'm not going to do this. So I rejected this monogamous container, which was, for me, it reeked with not being able to be authentic, feeling confined, being constricted. My freedom was impinged. So I intentionally embarked on a path of, it's very actually common in the area where we live here, of non-exclusive partnership, open relationship, polyamorous, and also, although this is happening in a monogamous container, but it's happening with non-integrity and with lying and hiding and cheating, and this can happening forever, like a shadowy, stealing your freedom and your need of variety, So I embarked upon this path and I would engage in connections where I would specify from the start that, hey, that's what the agreement, non-possession, non-ownership, freedom, you can do whatever you want. So I did do this for a number of years, and it was wonderful in a way that it was a healing, as it also was a reaction to the other phase of my life where I was inauthentic and I felt I had to be in a certain way. So somehow I got freedom. I started to discover my own authenticity and all that. And it was really enjoyable. It felt very stable and very, but I could see that at some point it was very dissatisfying, and I could see it became its own prison. And actually I could see what this quote that I want to read, what was driving that was also this unresolved attachment trauma, attachment wounds, unresolved love wounds. So yeah, so I don't say what is good, what is bad. I'm saying this can be phases and it's all necessary in the life of a man or a woman. But I just want to bring more understanding about this. And I want to read this passage that actually, can you still see me, Amata?
I can see you very well.
All right. So, and actually some of the people asked us questions, they commented on this. It's from this gentleman, Jeff Brown, that I highly recommend. So he says this: there is nothing free about non-commitment rooted in intimacy avoidance. There is nothing free about polyamory emanating from unresolved trauma history. There's nothing free about wanderlust sourced in relational terror. Being a free spirit has its place as part of the exploration of self and other, but if it's emanating from woundedness, it's just another prison. Our defenses can trick us into believing that our hunger for freedom is fundamental to our soul's imprint, but it's often something else. It's often an ungrounded flight of fancy, a delay tactic, a hide-and-seek game we are playing with our pain. If we avoid closeness, we can fool ourselves into believing that we have healed. But it only works for so long, because we aren't healed, and the remnants of our unresolved pain will show up everywhere. Simply put, we are wounded in close relationship, and some part of our healing has to happen in close relationship. There's no way around it. The best way to free ourselves from pain body prison is to learn how to trust again. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff.
This was very true for me. Somehow I could see it was good to have this phase. It was healing and liberating. But I was exactly doing this, what Jeff was saying. And actually it was very safe, because through this non-exclusivity, polyamory, I was actually avoiding togetherness. I was avoiding closeness. I was avoiding true intimacy and being vulnerable. which was subconsciously terrifying. I remember that in that phase of my life, the concept of girlfriend, wife, partner would be like, yeah, would be like really like the devil, you know, like was like, you know, the garlic for the vampire. And it took me a long time to realize that he was some safety in this non-togetherness, and there was a whole subconscious organization of avoiding closeness and managing distance, you know. And there was all this, how to arrange the communication, not to be too close, not to be too loving, so that and I feel like this is happening as a phenomena. I mean, I'm not special. It's happening a lot in these polyamorous, non-exclusive containers. This being said, you know, I'm sure that there's a way. I'm not saying that monogamy is the only way. I'm not saying at all that. There's a way to, if somebody is really clear from subconscious stuff and pretty deep and developed, you know, one can have multiple connections from a deep place. I believe it's not impossible, you know, maybe a tantric master, a real tantric master, or Taoist, or, you know, I'm sure it's possible. It's just that it's fishy. I see, and also working with people, I can see the same pattern playing out in them. Deep abandonment, sad stories like the little boy being left alone, a few months old, in a hotel room, or being abandoned without the mother, and all this terrible stuff. And later the man becomes wonderful, charismatic lover, and somehow seeking all the time different women, many women, but being afraid to go deep with one woman. You know, I've seen this in myself, seen it with many people.
Yeah, we're putting I feel like we're touching the spot here. And as you all know, I partially relate to your experience in some way, because I too have had a phase in my life where maybe not as widely as you did, but where I've had relationships that were open, or where there was more than a person that I was romantically involved with or sexually involved with. And in some ways that were out of integrity at times, or confusing. Somehow for me, that experience wasn't healing per se. In fact, probably it was rewounding in certain ways. But what was healing per se is the concept that actually there's not only one way to and growing up, you know, in a culture like Southern Italian culture, where you know, you are pretty monolithic on certain values, family values, relationship values. And I was a free spirit myself. I never really fit the container of a normal relationship, and failed miserably as a wife. I was really not good at being in the, you know, in the enclosed space, and I felt really unsettled in with the leash, you know. I mean,
the leash.
I'm not gonna go on the leash image because that may evoke a lot of stuff, but as a woman, I definitely rejected the idea of being owned. And to be controlled that way. So for me, it was also a matter of rebelling to sort of a centuries old experience within my DNA of being of being owned in some ways that I could not tolerate in this lifetime. And however, that concept of freedom, I don't necessarily fully relate either, because in some ways, if it is, you know, just like the surfing through contact or connection,
staying on the surface of
so, yeah,
relationships.
it's not even fulfilling at the very end. But I want to say something like this idea that inner autonomy or emotional autonomy and a sense of completeness within ourselves that leads us to a sense of freedom from toxic models of attachments, right? I want to just even name it that doesn't necessarily equate with lack of suffering. Like, I can have that level of consciousness that allows me to recognize this presence within myself and the sense of completeness within myself, where there's no lacking within myself, and feeling complete. And so approaching relationship from that place of inner sense of completion, being completed within myself, and at the same time experience pain.
Is it so in a context of more wiser type of loving container, and you experience pain? Is it triggered by what?
Well, it could be triggered by all kinds of things, right? Because I am not quite sure that we are ever arrived at that stage ultimately. I mean, unless you are Buddha or some sort of like ultimate level of awakening type of master, and you're just a human being still on the path, right? You're gonna experience that ache of whatever kind. It may be out of shame, it may be out of fear, it may be out of anger, it may be out of sadness, even a sense of even grief at times, right? Because there, in the context of a relationship, especially if there's a long journey relationship, there's many stages of changes and therefore loss. And things that change, and therefore we lost what we used to have, create some sort of grief here and there. I think that what it's different coming from a place of deeper presence and awareness rather than from the old program of the romantic illusions that we're trying to dispel, is that when that experience of pain arises, I remember to take it for what it is. A
like
wave
what?
in the ocean.
What?
A wave in the ocean.
Yeah.
A wave that is created, but it's not the ocean, right?
Yes.
It's a movement of my own humanity. And if I can just let it happen without that identification, it happens and it moves through, and right?
Right. And here,
what I'm trying to say is that being inherently free and conscious does not mean I will no longer experience those very uncomfortable moments that make me human.
Yeah.
I believe. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on.
You could be wrong. We have to see. But what comes here, what you're saying, actually, I mean, I was listening to Amata and Katvi, and they were saying that in this type of openness, vulnerability, there is already, straight from the beginning, there is some grief, because even if we're going to be together, one of us is going to die.
Yes.
One of us is going to die unless we do the Romeo and Juliet thing, which actually didn't quite work. that you both die at the same time, and then you skip this loss.
Yes.
But so that's an element of real suffering there, and unavoidable as part of the movie, how it's set up here, this embodiment.
Right.
So that is one thing. But I think what you're talking about, what comes up for you and for me and for people as suffering, is that still some unfully metabolized subconscious material that underneath the story, whatever happens, it comes down to abandonment signature of state in the body, rejection, which comes down to abandonment, or fear of loss, which comes down to abandonment. So all these are the most difficult feelings to bear, and one has to be pretty well trained in how to metabolize them. And so, and actually, you know, as they in the fourth way, they were saying that suffering is necessary. If suffering didn't exist, it's necessary for awakening. If suffering didn't exist, it would have to be invented. And no friction, no fire, they were saying. And some of the people, they were actually mentioning in like the difference between real suffering, unnecessary suffering. And so, yeah, real suffering would be that, let's say he leaves me, she leaves me, and then there's some sense of loss, and there's some sense of tearing, because the energetic togetherness now that was formed through spending time together and sexuality and love, is tearing. So there's a sense of tearing, and that could last, you know, a few minutes, a few days, you know, and so that's unavoidable, and that's a ripple, that's a wave, it's a sensation, you know, and we can just allow it to be, witness it, rest as awareness, welcoming this sensation called loss or whatever. But this, if we are not informed, or if we are not on the path, this can drag for decades and gets attached to like, oh, nobody's going to love me, how can he do this to me, they all this. So it's milked and juiced for a long time. It becomes a story of poor me, sad me, unfair, and one is wallowing in a sense of separation, you know, and that's you know, unnecessary, and is self-created. And with training, and one can diminish that a lot, you know.
Yeah, I think for me it was very liberating to learn this very little thing that has revolutionized my approach to uncomfortable emotions. And that per se an emotion, just like unattached to any type of story or belief around that experience, really it's a matter of at the maximum a few minutes, if you let it just happen that way, right? Some studies that were done around the fact that the lifespan of an emotion, raw as it is, in physical sensation, experience as a physical sensation, is less than 2 minutes. Can I allow myself to experience that uncomfortable moment in whatever way I'm able to relax through that experience, right?
Right. And Eckhart Tolle was talking about this, to stay there somehow, to get, when this happens, this wave of pain, to get fully present, the best we can, the best understanding, fully present in the now, and not allow that to go into the head to start to put some narrative, because this will keep going. This already, we are going away from the pain, and the pain body, which is the emotional aspect of the ego, the pain body goes into the head, and then it's like story, 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 and then there's more pain and more story, more pain, more story. So somehow to disentangle the knot of this pain body, emotional pain body, and to put the narrative aside for now, and just feel that actual sensation from awareness. And yeah.
I have a question, and I wonder, like, why is it so tempting to go into that narrative? I mean, think about a person like yourself, or even just like myself, who I'm just a little bit behind you, and we've had years of. When I say I'm a little bit behind you, I'm talking about this, type of, consciousness, spiritual path. Because I'm more on a different kind of path. But with years of processing and years of therapy and years of education and years of practicing, we still sometimes really like very tempted to go into that narrative approach to the suffering, and milking it, as you say, with memories and old stories and remember that one time and like all of it, right? So tempting. So tempting.
Well, I think that's the state of the how's it called, the normal state of affairs, because humanity is like lost in thought. So I mean, especially in the West, there's like the identities in the thinkingness and then in the mental processing. So this, we have decades of that, and it's more recent that we started to let go of the story and just be present and stay with the beingness. And so there's the whole tendency to go into the thinkingness, although I did notice in the last few years, since I was studying this awareness-based somatic psychotherapy, this Hakomi stuff and other teachings, that I got better. It took a few years to feel these things in the front line, where's the feminine side, and somehow not be harassed so much with the story, and feel that, which is hard actually. Sometimes there was a few years of feeling a lot of stuff, even free from story, but there's a whole other training there to not merge with those, and also to train yourself not to resist it, not to resist them, Amata, it's getting late, and I think we just started. I think I want to keep it a little shorter, and I think we can do a part 3.
I think we should.
Yeah, I do want to finish with something from this guy, Jeff Foster. It's Jeff Brown and Jeff Foster. I really recommend them. So this Jeff Foster is a really deep non-dual guy, yet with a full embodiment approach and non-bypassing.
Yeah, I like him.
And speaks deeply about that actually real awakening is not in the Zendo, but it's in the furnace of the relationship, where you have all this stuff coming up, and that's where the non-dual spiritual rubber hits the road, So before I read that, I want to mention to people that if this evokes any questions or comments, feel free to post them here on Facebook, or send them to Amata or myself, or on YouTube. Just do your best to put it like, shorter if you can, to the point, the question. It will help us. And we are looking forward to continue this investigation. And hang on, the wind blew.
I look forward to the day we can do this in the same room, Mihai.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be nice. I think it's coming soon, perhaps.
Hopefully.
So this is from Jeff Foster. The spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle says, relationship is here to make you conscious instead of happy. That's very powerful. Relationship is here to make you conscious instead of happy. Personally, I wandered in the wilderness for many years, the barren wasteland of spiritual detachment, disembodiment, neo-Advaita, world denial and superiority. I'm more enlightened, more conscious, more ego-free than you, you mere mortal. Getting back into real, grounded, messy, intimate human relationship, that's where the real adventure of life began. Relationship started to bring to the surface all the stuff within myself that I have been trying to avoid, numb, repress, or hide from others over the years. Stuff that didn't fit into the spiritual picture, the picture of the enlightened man. It was painful and humiliating to be shown time and time again that I wasn't done, that there was actually no finish line at all, that unenlightened energies still raged in me, energies that I do not yet accepted in myself, energies that longed for the light, fragments that ached to be loved and given a relational home. Painful and humiliating as it was, the journey came to be astonishingly liberating. The stink of enlightenment, as Mariana Kaplan calls it, doesn't stand a chance in the furnace of honest relationship. Cliches like there's no me, there's only awareness, and everything is perfect, just don't cut it when your intimate friend is standing in front of you, asking for honest, vulnerable, no bullshit, hard connection. There's nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. She will see through your games, call you out when you lie. Thank you to all you strong, intelligent, beautiful women who taught me how to love, how to listen, and made this journey never end. Jeff Foster.
Yeah. You know, one thing I wanna, as I was hearing you reading this is coming to my attention and my mind, is that as we dispel the illusion of, as we call it, the romantic illusion, right? And this false idea of another one that will make us happy and complete. In reality, what it's emerging through this dialogue that we tend through this form, and also privately, you and I as friends, is that actually the true foreignness of intimate love and connection, and it's real, and it's where we grow, and it's where we come to very deep stages of awareness within ourselves and with another person.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do they say in English? Do not throw the baby with the
Bathwater.
bathwater. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're saving the baby. That's what we're doing. We're saving the baby.
All right, Amata. Thank you for joining me here and for inspiring this. And thank you everyone for watching us, and
thank you.
May you have real peace, real love, and enjoy the galaxy.
Oh.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.